Welcome to CIOspeak. Today we have with us Mr. Aditya Baswan, Head of Governance, Agile Transformation at Bank Fab. And he has worked in various roles, various banks in the Middle East region in similar roles. And thank you for joining us, Adi.
Thanks for having me on, Vineet. Yes, BFSI organizations across here and a few other geographies. So happy to share my thoughts and
Pleasure. Thank you. So we'll just jump right in and start picking your brain already. What trends do you observe in the ways of working across banking technology teams in this region?
Right. So the ways of working kind of driven by some of the macro and micro changes we are observing here in the sense the consolidation of banks continues, technology teams restructuring. So I feel one of the bigger trend is technology teams truly trying to be becoming more, better partners with business and other enabling functions that they support. Where we see implication of collaboration is the tech estate across, the previous 2 or 3 banks may have merged that may have led to disparate ways of working, disparate ways of monitoring and looking at processes. So streamlining of processes is also another major trend that we observe. Because to be honest, when we peel away the onions and look at technology processes, they kind of like, in a restaurant, they're the kitchen analogy, right? So they are what's happening, the chaos in the kitchen is not observable in the front office. So that I think is really being looked at. So how much are we adopting cloud? That leads to need for new capabilities and ways of working, within technology teams. How are we looking at our not only infra but monitoring capabilities, non-functional requirements. So I think those are becoming more evident. Service quality is becoming more evident. So these are all trends which are promising, which are very positive.
What are some of the tools and techniques you use to plan out these complex enterprise-wide transformation projects?
It's define the problem statement, right? But then how do you end up kind of unpeeling that, double-clicking that is through VOC, which is voice of customer, speaking to stakeholders, your sponsor. And from my Lean Six Sigma background, a lot of it is on the data. So, basically put your trust in God, everyone else brings data, right? Analysis of data, root cause analysis, market research, etc. So start with a well-defined, thought-out problem statement, have that validated, and back it up with data, do your surveys, do your customer research, and your stakeholder surveys, etc., which is what we call VOC in the Six Sigma way.
Do you think this region is catching up
in how we kind of kick off enterprise transformation? Yes, I mean I can speak more for banking, financial services, but I see it also in large conglomerates. Everyone's kicking off digital transformation, but at the end of it is more around process transformation, process reengineering. How do we streamline those? And those are anyways have to be end to end, right? So you can't just look at one piece of the puzzle. It has to be the wing to wing, as we say, order to cash, all these practices. So I think that it's picking up pace, quicker in some areas, and we can decipher some of that today.
What are some of the most important skills for an enterprise transformation manager?
The core nucleus are the 3 C's. So communicate, collaborate, and coordinate, right? They say any good, you can call it transformation program, portfolio manager, essentially 90% of the time goes in communication. Right? This is PMI published. How do you quickly establish trust and collaborate? It can only happen through creating a common ground through coordinating and communicating well. And then obviously you collaborate to solve the challenge together. It's not like, there is no magic bullet ever. In the last 16 years of doing this, across geographies, it's rare that a solution comes holistically, or individually from one individual. It is always a collaboration, a team effort. The people who've been close to it know the problems. We have to collectively arrive at a solution, and bring it up, bubble it up, and find the right sponsor to push it ahead. So yeah. communicate, collaborate, and coordinate.
Remember the 3 C's, yeah.
Right,
That's
yes.
great. How do you see the future of agile transformation in the Middle East?
So we'll segregate the two parts of the question. So one is transformation, the other is agile ways of working. Because a lot of times, to use a bit of a crass analogy, lipstick on a pig, we start our stand-ups, or we put a few Scrum principles in place, we have a few squads in place, and we think, now, and then at the end of it, we can't understand why we're not delivering value. The greater part of the agile transformation part lies in the transformation. So how much of this is culture-centric? How much of it is the processes supporting, the whatever platform you're trying to transform, or the business process, etc. And then you apply lean and agile principles.
What are some of the challenges you face when implementing an enterprise-wide transformation project?
I think culture is the primary, you can say, challenge, impediment, an obstacle to overcome, because the ways of working, the ethos of an organization, how do they support what you are trying to achieve? So I think along with that, the skills and capabilities that you need to help push the change across, like the feet on the ground, right? So there's a message from the top, it drives a certain culture and a way of thinking, but then you need people to pick it up and run with it. So are those skills and capabilities within the organization? How do you import them? A lot of times, maybe a bit more myopic is, let's do a restructure, let's bring all fresh blood. It works in some cases, it may not work in some cases. How do you move people who've been working in a certain way through no fault of theirs for 15, 20 years? How rapidly are we asking them to adapt to a new world, without supporting them with the right upskilling and, taking them on this journey together?
So is there one specific, like you said, culture was the biggest one of all, right? Do you have a formula on how to tackle that?
Time. Time, persistent messaging, rewarding the right behavior, and all of this happens, it's kind of like an evolution, right? So it takes time and you can't rush it, and these are things which I think collaboratively with our organization development departments, HR, a lot of that involvement is needed. And so a lot of it depends on how quickly are we able to bring these functions into help. And I believe there is great impetus to do this.
Explain what agile ways of working means to you.
Right, so for me, root cause analysis, mapping out a process, identifying bottlenecks, and then streamlining or kind of breaking the bottleneck. Rather than, following a playbook, do we really get with the essence of Agile, which is being able to work better together, collaborate together? I think that's my take on Agile ways of working.
How do you handle disagreements within a team on the best way to implement change?
I don't think it's ever the outcome which is in question, right? So I'm just trying to think back to what are some of the disagreements which may have been the team internally. I think at the end of the day, we all want a common outcome, which is an improvement. I think it's the approach, right, which has to get debated. And the only way to do that is, again, come with data, right? So let the data, let the facts speak for themselves. And disagreements, should partly get sorted there, unless it's a behavior issue, which is a whole different, ball game. And the other is, if we can't find a common, approach, then let's experiment, let's pilot, in a limited way. One example of this could be, we want to do demand prioritization two different ways, right? We feel, I don't know, let's take an example, throwing darts at a board and selecting the best project could be a way, right, hypothetically. The other way is you sit and you look at 16 parameters of validating a project, regulatory, risk, profit margin, ROI, MVP. So let's pilot it across two different, and then we see that whichever one has ended up with the biggest ROI. Some of these experiments don't need to be beyond a quarter, and I think we all can live with a quarter's worth of experiments, which I think should be the way to go. Because disagreements will always exist. I think it's a way, people talk about the servant leadership concept, but it's more around how do you feel everyone's voice kind of values without unnecessarily delaying the process as well.
Adaptability, resilience, and flexibility. These are going to define the 21st century skills. What's your take on this view?
Absolutely. What we've seen the last few years, how quickly organizations kind of adapted. They say COVID was one of the biggest reasons for digital adoption. So I think we as working professionals also had to kind of adapt ourselves. I feel one way to circumvent any kind of negative implication of this is to disrupt yourself continuously. So in that sense, continue your education beyond your core. I think as working professionals, we should to kind of buffer ourselves against hard headwinds is build deep domain expertise in one field, and then to fulfill the obligation of the matrix organization, kind of spread your wings to look at and do multiple projects across different functions in that field. So you're able to be more holistic as a working professional. So we are able to kind of be more flexible and adaptive. One example of this, and large organizations do this. I know organizations here are working with EIBFS, the Banking Federation, the education school, to create bankers programs across many disciplines. GE used to do this gold program. I was fortunate to be part of that, where every 6 months you change your role or your geography or the team you're part of. So there are ways to do this, and I think as professionals, if we kind of disrupt ourselves, we find we are able to adapt to changes a little bit better.
In 2023, what are 2 goals that you'd like to accomplish?
There are personal goals. I think I want to stick more to my fitness regimen, right? Make more time for family, personal hobbies, and what I just mentioned on my, the education goals.
The fitness one might be the hardest one.
Especially with the holiday season, it's been a bit, it's been sidetracked. Professionally, I've been here 9 years now, across a few of the large organizations. So I want to kind of build better connect with some of my stakeholders across, do a bit more external breathing, external thinking of collaboration, be part of forums like this for sure, and maybe a semi-formal, platform where professionals struggling with the same challenges of change and transformation can kind of come together and just discuss, off the cuff, off the record, what has worked, what hasn't worked, beyond, the clinical 1 or 2 day workshops, seminars, conferences we have here, which are great for networking, but I don't know what people really walk out of that at the end of the day. So we really want something more, a bit more meaningful, a bit more intimate, where you can just, over coffee, 3-4, folks can catch up, and so that'll be a nice thing to try and do. The challenges here are a bit unique to the UAE, right, where we are.
Sure.
For the banking industry. A lot of organizations are grappling with similar challenges, so it might be interesting.
We look forward to helping support that if we can. I've become acquainted with your professional bio, but how would you describe your life story?
Right, Vineet, I've been here 9 years now. Father to a lovely 5-year-old. Before this, my early upbringing was India. My dad was in the army, so we moved around a lot. I think that's what kind of shaped my personal ethos of change, flexibility, because every 2-3 years you change schools and towns, and you have to come up with a new circle. So that's been now that I reflect back, maybe that's also led to me taking up roles where I do more of projects. I meet new people, stakeholders. That's been interesting. I finished my college in India, my MBA, and then I joined GE. I was with them for about 8 years. Wonderful. GE invested a lot in learning, developing their workforce. Obviously Six Sigma is part of the DNA. The Jack Welch heritage. So that was great. My global role started there. I've done projects in Latin America, setting up centers for GE in South and Central America. I was on show in the US for a while. I worked with mostly BFSI clients, G Money or Capital One, Green Dot, but also high-tech clients. One of my key, kind of landmark projects is setting up the Google Center in Ann Arbor, Michigan, for their lower mass market, small medium businesses, and the sales office for them, and Gmail account recovery. So if you lose your, unfortunately, if you lose your Gmail account, if you write back to recover, you'll reach out to that team sitting in Ann Arbor. And here it's been a lovely 9 years. Looking forward to many more. As part of a great team in Tanfeed, Emirates NBD, we did projects with the bank, and that's where first, I think, digital transformation kind of started from there, to be honest. So looking at transformation of back office processes, post-implementation of FATCA CRS, because that had to be done for a lot of banks. So that was good. So from Lean, Six Sigma, digital thinking, getting into process transformation, using Agile
There you have it. Mr. Aditya Baswan, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your insights.
Thanks for having me, Vineet. Addy for friends.
Addy, yes.
Cheers.
Nice.
Looking forward to continue collaborating. Cheers.